So, you ever said something and it just landed completely wrong? Well, today we're going to crack open why that happens. And we're going to use a tool that's surprisingly old, but man, it is powerful. It's called the Shannon-Weaver model.
Okay, so let's get real for a second. I mean, have you ever sent a text, maybe an email, or even just shot someone a look, and it was taken completely the wrong way? Yeah, of course you have. We've all been there, right? It's kind of universal.
So let's paint a picture. Imagine you send flowers to your partner. Super simple, right? The intention is just, hey, I love you. Pure affection. But what if they get them and their first thought is, uh-oh, what did they do wrong now? Is this an apology? All of a sudden, this really simple gesture is a total mess of confusion.
So, how do we even begin to untangle that? How do we figure out exactly where that message just went completely off the rails? Well, believe it or not, we're going to use a blueprint from the 1940s. Yeah, I know, it sounds ancient, but trust me, it is brilliant at diagnosing exactly what goes wrong in our conversations.
Okay, a quick history lesson. This whole thing was born way back in 1948. It was cooked up by two brilliant guys, a mathematician named Claude Shannon and a scientist, Warren Weaver. And they were working at Bell Telephone Labs. Now, their original goal, totally technical. They just wanted to make phone calls clearer, get rid of the static. But what they created was so good, so effective, that it blew up way beyond phones and got adapted to explain basically all human communication. All right, so let's get into the guts of it. Let's break down the journey a message takes. The best way to think about it is like a communication assembly line. It has these distinct stages, and if any one of them messes up, well, the whole thing can fall apart. So here's the high-level view of that assembly line. It starts with the source, that's the sender. Then it goes through a transmitter, we'll get to that. It travels along a channel, to a receiver, and finally it gets to its destination. Seems pretty straightforward, right? But oh man, the devil is absolutely in the details. Okay, step one, the source. That's you. You've got an idea in your head. But here's the thing, a thought isn't communication. Not yet. You have to encode it. You have to turn that abstract idea into something real, something tangible. So that thought, I love you, gets encoded into the act of ordering and sending flowers. See, that's the encoding part. All right, next up on the assembly line are the message and the channel. The message is, well, it's the thing itself. The flowers, the little note attached. But the channel is how it gets from you to them. Is it a physical delivery? Is it a picture in a text? A face-to-face conversation? This part is huge because the channel you pick can completely change how that message is received. Okay, now we're jumping to the other end of the line. The receiver gets the message, but their job isn't passive. They have to actively decode it. They have to translate those flowers, that note, back into an idea in their own head. And here's the absolute make-or-break moment. Their decoding isn't a perfect science. It's filtered through everything. Their past experiences, their mood that day, their culture, everything. And this is exactly what we were talking about with the flowers. The sender's perfectly encoded message of I love you gets decoded by the receiver as I feel guilty. Why? Because their personal filter, their context, made them think it was an apology. That gap, that space between your intent and their interpretation, that's where communication just completely breaks down. So what causes that gap? What's the gremlin in the machine? Well, the model has a name for this hidden saboteur, and honestly, it's one of the most important ideas in all of communication theory. The villain of our story is noise. And listen, when we say noise, don't just think of, loud sounds. It's so much more than that. In this model, noise is anything that gets in the way of the message. It can be external, like actual static on a phone line, or it can be internal, stuff like your own biases or assumptions. And the worst part, it can jump in at any point on that assembly line and just torpedo the whole thing. What's really cool is how the model breaks down noise into three main types. First, you've got physical noise. This is the obvious stuff you can usually see or hear, like a terrible internet connection during a video call. Then there's semantic noise. This is all about confusion in the language itself, like using super technical jargon or slang that the other person just doesn't get. But maybe the trickiest of all is psychological noise. That's the static inside our own heads, stress, being tired, being biased, that colors how we interpret everything.
Let's plug this right back into our flower story. It makes it so clear. What's physical noise? The delivery driver drops the flowers off at the wrong house. Boom! Semantic noise? Your handwriting on the note is so messy they can't even read it. And psychological noise, that's the big one. Your partner had a horrible day at work, they're in a bad mood, and they're already set up to see the worst in everything, including your nice gesture.
Okay, so right now, this whole thing sounds a lot like a one-way street, doesn't it? Just sending a message out into the void. And we all know that's not how real conversations work. The original model, believe it or not, was missing a totally critical piece of the puzzle, the one that turns a speech into an actual back and forth.
Yeah, the first version was totally linear. It was literally like shooting an arrow and just hoping it hits the target. But real communication needs a response, right? You need to know if you hit. That's where feedback comes into the picture. And adding this one little element was a complete game changer. It turned a straight line into a circle, a continuous interactive loop.
So what is feedback? It's really just the receiver's response sent back to the original sender. It could be anything. A smile, a nod, asking a question, a text message, whatever it is, it's the signal that says, yep, message received, and hey, here's how I understood it.
And this is how our flower story finally gets its happy ending. The partner texts back, "Thank you so much. I love them." That text, that's the feedback. It closes the loop. The sender now knows for sure that their message of love wasn't just received, it was decoded perfectly. Mission accomplished.
Okay, but let's be real here. The model isn't perfect. It's a great tool, but it has limits. We already talked about how the first version totally missed the idea of feedback. It also kind of oversimplifies the real world. I mean, it doesn't really have a way to account for things like power dynamics. You know, a message from your boss is going to land way differently than one from your friend. And it really struggles with messy, complex situations, like a big group meeting where everyone's a sender and a receiver all at once.
So you might be thinking, okay, if it has all these limitations, why are we still talking about this old thing from the 40s? That's a great question. And the answer is because its core idea, its main function, is probably more important today than it ever has been. Here's really the big takeaway, the so what of all this. The real power of the Shannon-Weaver model is as a diagnostic tool. It's like a troubleshooter's guide for conversations. When communication fails, and it will, you can use this framework like a checklist. You can go back, step by step, and figure out exactly where things went wrong.
And this is incredibly useful, especially at work. Shannon and Weaver basically gave us a 3-level audit for our communication. Level 1 is the technical problem. Did the message even get through? Was the email sent? Was the connection bad? Level 2 is the semantic problem. Okay, they got it, but was the meaning clear, or was your phrasing ambiguous? And finally, level 3, the effectiveness problem. They understood you, but did it actually produce the result you wanted? Or did they just ignore it? It's a complete communication checkup.
When you boil it all down, the model leaves us with a pretty stark conclusion. The primary responsibility for good communication lies with the sender. It's on you. You're the one who has to choose the right words, pick the right channel, and try to predict and minimize all that potential noise. The burden is really on you to make sure your message lands the way you meant it to.
So, I want to leave you with this to chew on. We live in a world that is just flooded with digital noise. Constant emails, notifications, DMs, social media feeds, it never stops. So the question is, how can you take this simple, really the 75-year-old idea, and use it as a blueprint to communicate better in your own life starting today?